When I was growing up, they used to call me I will follow. And the reason why they called me this was because I used to like to follow. When everybody else was leaving the house, like anytime anybody in the house is going out, they usually have to sneak their way out of the house because once I know that somebody's about to go out, even if I'm sleeping, I will wake up and I'll be screaming, I'll follow you, I'll go with you. I had an abandonment issue. Yes, I had a parent that left while I was much younger. So I started to suspect that every person that was living my life, a loved one, was about to abandon me. So that's how you know an abandonment issue that was glaring. For me, it was very glaring. And everybody used to laugh about it because it was always funny. I grew up to become a person that has an anxious attachment style. Now, this is something that you may also have identified with. And because I'm all about helping you to heal yourself from the inside out, I'm going to tell you exactly the things I did to move from being an anxious attached person to a more secure attachment style. Now, these are very unconventional, but I want you to try whichever one that you can try right now. But I'm going to be very honest and sincere about the process, everything I did. The first thing I started to do was that I started to drop the need to understand. I know that if you already are trying to work on healing your attachment style, you may have been listening to a lot of videos talking about the anxious attached style. In fact, you may have been consuming a lot of things like I was. I was reading a lot of books about the attachment styles, how to heal them and stuff like that. I was listening to a lot of media, a lot of podcasts, YouTube videos, anything that would guide me on what the symptoms are. I was very, very familiar about the things that I used to do, my patterns and the reasons why I did them and how I used to show up. Like it was just literally, I was just consuming the same old kind of information about the same thing. So I was like trying to understand myself. Now, what I was doing was that I was focusing myself more on the problem rather than switching my focus to the solution. So I moved my focus from being so problem focused to more solution focused. So that means I stopped listening to all of these videos about an anxiously attached person does this or says this or would do this. I switched my focus from all of those kind of material to more of the contents that are telling me how to be more secure, how to embody security, more of the content that were telling me, oh, this is how you get out of the situation, instead of the things that were focusing on all the things that I would do as a person who was anxious attached. This was a major game changer for me because I was aware of it for so long that I didn't even know my way out of it until I switched my focus from being problem aware to solution aware. And that's the one thing you want to start to do because where you focus your attention will determine the direction you are headed. If you say you don't want to be anxious anymore and you're listening to content that's telling you about how an anxious person behaves, getting familiar with the signs and symptoms and the things that an anxious person does, guess what you're doing? You're telling your mind, you're telling yourself, you're guiding your life more and more into that direction. So if you don't want to be anxious attached, start to focus more on materials, content, on people that are guiding people out of being anxious attached to more secure attached ways of being. That's where you want to start guiding your attention towards. That's the first thing I did. I switched my attention from being focused on the problem to being focused on the solution. Now, the second thing I started to do was I started to change my identity. So I sat down and took a good look at the situation and said, what are the factors? What are the things that have created this identity? And then I looked at the top three. My feelings, my thoughts, and my actions. Those are the top three things that have guided that identity. And so I started rewiring these things. I started changing this identity from that of an anxious person to that of a more secure person. This is no jokes. One of the sweetest things that I did and that got me fast, amazing results. And by the way, I started feeling differently in a short time, after doing this inner identity work. When you change your identity, you must change your reality. I repeat, if you change your identity, you will change your reality. And so I changed my identity by switching things up on those three frontiers: emotions, actions, and thoughts. So that was the second thing I did, which got me drastic results. Now, the third thing I did, this one is something that I will still do a video to give you more details on how to do this. But the third thing I did was that I started to use the toxic relationships that I was in. I started to use them to heal myself. This might sound tricky, but it's something that anybody can do. I stepped into the mode of mastery and I started to do the things that masters do. What a master is capable of doing is to bring out positive things from even the things that seems negative. And so instead of running away from my toxic relationships that were not serving me, the default thing is to run away from it because it's not a sweet experience. But I stayed. And I used those toxic relationships that triggered me so much, got the worst out of me. I started to use those relationships to heal myself and get better. I have this belief that no matter what it is that is in front of us, it's always presented to serve us. And what I learned from this is that if you do not seek out the advantage that even an unpleasant situation or a challenge is presenting to you, the possibility of that repeating itself is high. And this is the reason why some people keep attracting the exact same person over and over again. You feel like the next person you would attract will be better, but the person is not any better. It's because you have not used that situation the way you were meant to use it. And so it will keep presenting itself over and over again until you learn how to use it. So I will do a separate video on how to use your toxic relationships to heal yourself. I will do a separate video for that. That is going to be hot, so you want to look out for it. Now that I've shared 3 things that I did, you can decide to take up any of these things. You can do any of these things from at whatever point you are in. I can also do a breakdown if you want me to do like a full breakdown on each of these things that I did. You can just comment breakdown in the comments and I will do a breakdown. Like each video, I will explain in details how I was able to go from one to the next. Now, this is something that you are going to find very helpful, and I want to go ahead and start to use it because you are not stuck being an anxious person, and you cannot keep going on in your life being anxious attached person or avoidant attached person. That can change. You are not a stone, you're not a rock. You can change, and the change is easy. It's not difficult at all. Not difficult. I promise you, it is not hard. BYOG, guys, you got it.